Everything you vibe code with AI comes out looking the same. Here is one rules file that actually fixes it. If you have ever vibe coded a landing page with an AI coding agent, you have seen the pattern. Purple gradient backgrounds, a 3-card feature row, rounded corners on every element, an italic serif hero headline that nobody specifically asked for. It is not because the model is bad at design. It is because the model fills any decision you leave unspecified with the statistical average of its training data. And that average, across millions of web pages and UI kits, looks exactly like what you just built. Every project starts to converge on the same defaults until nothing reads as intentional anymore. The model has taste. It just happens to be everyone else's taste compressed into one. So someone went and cataloged the tells. The GitHub repository Signs of AI Design by Febhav started with a simple observation. Every category of AI-generated visual output shares recognizable patterns. It is modeled directly on Wikipedia's Signs of AI Writing, which documented the linguistic fingerprints of machine-written prose. This project does the same thing for machine-made visuals. It covers websites and app interfaces. It covers AI-generated images. It covers AI-generated video. It covers logos, slide decks, marketing materials, and even copy embedded inside designs. Each entry lists what to look for, why models produce it, and what the false positives are. The repository started small with about 15 stars, but the concept is sharp enough that it has already attracted attention from working product designers, and the community is growing. The guide is built on 3 rules of interpretation that prevent it from becoming a gotcha list. First, you stack signs, never single ones. A dark hero section with a glow effect also happens to be the house style of Linear, Raycast, and 100 human design teams that adopted it years before generative AI existed. The fingerprint is the co-occurrence of many defaults with 0 deviation anywhere. Second, you judge the absence of decisions, not the presence of a style. The recurring theme across every category is that AI output is the statistical median of its training data. The tell is not that inter is a bad typeface. The tell is inter unchosen next to 20 other unchosen defaults. And third, the guide explicitly says do not use this to harass people. Identifying AI involvement in a design is not evidence of low effort or bad work. Every entry in the guide carries 2 labels. The reliability label tells you how much a single match is worth. Strong means very few humans produce it by accident. Things like garbled letter forms or hallucinated extra limbs in AI images or placeholder text left in a shipped slide deck. Moderate means the sign is meaningful mostly in combination with others. And weak means humans do it constantly, so the sign only matters at high density. The status label tells you whether the sign still applies to current models. Hands were the canonical image tell of 2023 and are mostly fixed in frontier models now. Purple gradients were the canonical UI tell of 2024 and are already migrating toward cream palettes and italic serif heroes. A guide like this decays by nature. That is why it lives as a repository that people can contribute to rather than a static article. Here is the clever part. The repository also ships design rules. MD as a practical tool you can drop directly into your project. You rename it to Claude, MD or Agents, MD or Cursor rules, and your AI coding agent starts designing against those defaults instead of the statistical average. The rules are phrased as prefer a real decision over the reflex, not as a blanket ban, because half these patterns are perfectly fine in the right context. The point is to make the choice deliberate instead of default. When you give your agent explicit taste constraints, it is like handing a junior designer a brand guide before they start working. The model is not bad at UI, it just needs you to tell it which path to take when there are multiple valid options. The deeper insight here is about how language models actually work when generating visual output. Every model has been trained on a massive corpus of web design. When you ask it to build something, it reaches into that corpus and pulls the most statistically common patterns. Inter font, purple gradient, rounded corners, 3-card layout, these are not bad choices individually, they are just the median. And when every project uses the same median, the result is visual homogenization. One commenter on the subreddit put it perfectly. The model defaults to the safest statistical pattern. Having explicit taste constraints changes the entire output. Another commenter noted that the prefer a real decision over the reflex framing is what will actually hold up in practice. Blanket bans decay over long coding sessions as the model drifts back to its statistical default. But rules phrased as concrete defaults like use this color unless that condition applies, survive noticeably better as the conversation gets longer. The community response has been practical and constructive. A product designer on the subreddit immediately offered to test the rules file against a few design types and give feedback. The author responded that it depends on how tightly you create the rule, which is an honest answer, because the rules file is a living document, not a finished product. One commenter who works in UI design called it their answer to the problem. The most insightful comment came from someone who has been using the rules file in practice. They noted that the prefer a real decision over the reflex framing is the part that will actually hold up over time. Blanket bans decay as context fills up during long sessions, but rules phrased as concrete defaults with conditions survive noticeably better. That is a real operational insight about how to write rules that AI agents actually follow. The takeaway is simple. One rules file can change the entire character of your AI-generated designs. You drop it into your project, your coding agent stops converging on the statistical median and starts making deliberate choices instead. The repository is open source under a Creative Commons license, so anyone can copy it, translate it, or build tools on top of it. The guide itself is a living document that decays as models patch their tells. If you are building with AI agents and you want your output to look like you actually made decisions about it, this is a practical starting point. The link is in the description. If this helped you make your AI designs more intentional, hit subscribe. I break down the tools and repositories that actually change how you build with AI. See you next time.